In this next video, I'm going to show you how to pick up stitches. For this exercise, we're going to pick up stitches around the neck of the roll neck sweater. We have some stitches on a stitch holder that we are going to transfer to a double-pointed needle. I'm using a double-pointed needle for this. Whoops, that one popped right off. Just going to slide them all on the needle. Sometimes it's easier, whoops, to slide them off one needle onto the other. I'll show you what I mean. There go the needles. Just like this. Not just like that. Holding the needle sort of tip to tip and popping the stitches over. This might be a lot of stitches for a double pointed needle. I'll check. We'll stop and see. It's like watching paint dry. I'll get the last two on. So they're a little crowded, but I will pick up all of the dropped needles, and using a new source of yarn, what you do is you're going to dive into, I generally look at a stitch. I'm going to see if I can't zoom in. I dive into the fabric at the edge. The first one's always tough because the end of the yarn isn't connected to anything. You could fix that by weaving in the end and anchoring it. But I have a loop, and then I dive in and wrap and pull through. And I do that around the edge of either down the side of an edge or around the edge of the garment until I pick up the correct number of stitches in the pattern. I'm going to do that all around the edge of the neck, and I'll be back. Here is a continuation of the video of picking up stitches around a neck, or picking up stitches. I ended up switching to double pointed needles, and that gives me the opportunity to show you how to knit circularly with two double pointed needles in case the circumference is too small for one. Because if you have a 16-inch circular needle, the circumference can't be any smaller than 16 inches. But I am using the Addi Click set of interchangeable double point needles, and they don't come in a 16-inch. But it gives me a chance to show you a neat little trick. So I have two sets of double pointed needles, one here and one here. And to knit the first set of stitches, it's still a tube, as you can see, a circle, where half of the stitches in the circle are loaded onto one needle and the other half are loaded onto the other needle. Here is my yarn, and as I've said before, it goes in the last stitch knitted, so we know that the next stitch that needs to be knitted is this one. The concept behind knitting with double pointed needles is that you only use one needle at a time, one set of needles at a time. So this is my set of needles. I'm going to use this one to knit while the other one stays inactive. So I'm going to shimmy the stitches down to the end of, this is the end of one part and this is the beginning of the other part. These are knit stitches, so the yarn is in the back, and I am going to knit around on these stitches. It's a really, really handy tool and almost can eliminate the need for double pointed needles, except for the really smallest circumference of just a few. I find when knitting dolls and toys that start on just a few stitches, that's a little unwieldy for a set of circular needles. I just want to show you what happens at the end of this. This way I find it easier because stitches aren't popping off of the ends of the double pointed needles, which is what ended up happening. In my experience, Kat Bordy was the first person I ever saw knitting like this, and she has a great book called Socks Soar on 2 circular needles where she demonstrates this technique, and the world has just taken it and applied to any circular knitting. Okay, so now this needle, I've worked all the stitches. I'm going to turn the work around. Now that other needle that I used, it's going to be called needle 1. That needle is now out of work for half a circle. And needle 2, the beginning and end, I'm going to scooch the stitches up to the end of the needle and knit those around. I'm going to continue in this manner until all the stitches are worked. I think it's about 8 rounds, and then I'm going to bind off loosely. I hope you enjoy this trick.